Let's get straight to it. We're conducting a forensic autopsy on what is, without a doubt, the longest-running con in human history. It's time to open the case file.
Make no mistake, this isn't some casual observation. We are about to dissect the very architecture of this lie, a lie that has been used for centuries to bleed genuine spiritual practitioners dry, all while hiding behind a mask of holiness.
All right, here's our procedure. First, we'll examine the so-called saints of poverty. Then we'll review Exhibit A, the paid clergy. After that, we perform an anatomy of a scammer, investigate the economic crime scene, and finally deliver our verdict, a truth overdose.
Our autopsy begins with a familiar line. You've seen it slithering in comment sections, a little piece of moral blackmail designed for one thing: exploitation.
Oh, it sounds so noble, doesn't it? So pure. And it's supposed to. But let's perform a translation. What is really being said here?
What it really means is this: I want your psychic surgery, and I don't want to pay for it. That's the long and short of it. It's not a statement of faith, it's a consumer demand wearing a halo. They throw around terms like love and light to justify what is, essentially, a demand for free labor. And they conveniently ignore the one glaring fact that blows their entire argument out of the water. Every single major religion they cite as their moral high ground pays its clergy.
Which brings us to Exhibit A. Let's open the archive, shall we? A quick look at the books of major world religions tells a very, very different story.
The evidence is, well, it's undeniable. Let's run down the list. The Catholic Church, priests get stipends, housing, cars, bishops live better than most CEOs. And let's not forget, the Vatican literally runs its own bank. Orthodox clergy, they're often paid by the state, and their vestments alone cost a small fortune. Protestant ministers, they preach about grace, sure, but that grace is financed by tithes. The sermon might be free, but the preacher's mortgage certainly isn't. And evangelical pastors, private jets. I think that says it all. Imams, rabbis, all salaried, housed, and insured. Even nuns and monks, who take vows of poverty, have every single one of their needs covered by their order.
You see the pattern here? No clergy on earth lives off of energy exchange. They live off payroll. And that right there is the hypocrisy in flashing lights. The established systems all compensate their labor. But the second an independent practitioner, a reader, a healer, an oracle asks for the same respect, they're suddenly greedy, unspiritual, a fraud.
So, we've established the what. Now for the why. Let's move from the evidence to the perpetrator. It's time to dissect the psychology of the scammer.
This is their favorite weapon. But this isn't a moral statement. It's consumerism wearing a spiritual costume. The real message, the subtext is, you have power and I want to use it for free. Let's be perfectly clear. This is not divine flow. It is divine exploitation. This whole myth wasn't born from some sacred principle. No, it was engineered. Its purpose? To devalue independent practitioners and keep all the spiritual power and the money centralized within traditional religious institutions. You know, the old boys club that has God on the payroll. The people who push this scam, they tend to fit into a few distinct profiles. Let's break down the four main archetypes, the anatomy of the freeloader. First, you have the moral parasite. They weaponize shame. If you were truly spiritual, you know the line. Then there's the budget mystic, who's only broke at checkout. Their nails are done, the new iPhone is paid for, but suddenly they just can't afford clarity. Third is the holiness addict, a kind of poverty fetishist. Your suffering is somehow proof of their purity. And finally, the guilt dealer, the one who whispers that charging money blocks your intuition. No, what blocks things is not being able to pay your rent. Make no mistake, these people aren't ignorant, they're strategic.
Now let's survey the damage. What happens when this myth is allowed to fester? Let's walk through the economic crime scene. And it always starts with their favorite little deflection.
The hermit myth, the freeloader's favorite red herring. It's a nice image, but it's got nothing to do with the reality of the situation. Let's get one thing straight. Hermits chose exile. They didn't demand service from others. They renounced the entire system of exchange, not just payment for a service. They weren't running free sessions from their cave. People demanding free readings? They represent servitude. They're not asking you to be a hermit. They're asking you to be a slave.
And when that idea takes hold, it creates a catastrophic chain reaction. We call it the market collapse cascade. First, readers drop their prices to dodge the guilt trips. Then, the truly skilled practitioners get fed up and just quit the field altogether. This creates a vacuum that the charlatans are more than happy to flood. Suddenly, genuine seekers are drowning in confusion, not clarity. And finally, the entire profession loses its credibility. What's left is a broken market masquerading as enlightenment.
And don't even get me started on the so-called karma of it all. Trying to steal someone's labor and calling it divine balance is just theft with incense. The universe doesn't bless extraction. It mirrors your intention. So when you put out the energy of I want but I will not give, the universe just echoes it right back at you. Then you will keep wanting. That's not karma, my friends. That's just physics.
And that brings us to the end of our autopsy. It is time for the final verdict. Time for the truth overdose.
Here's the inescapable conclusion. This entire belief system is a moral Ponzi scheme. It provides validation for the consumers at the top and demands starvation from the practitioners at the bottom. The idea that spiritual work should be free was never about holiness. It was forged in greed and just disguised as virtue.
The historical precedent is crystal clear. The saints, they had stipends. The prophets, they had patrons. And yes, even those desert hermits, they had donors.
And let's land on the final, unshakable point. No divine being ever said, work for exposure. Not one, ever. This entire argument is a human invention for human exploitation. Period.
And with that, this autopsy is closed. The saints had salaries. You should too. Stop feeding guilt. Start feeding yourself. Cause of death? A fatal overdose of the truth.
No divine being ever said, work for exposure.